now, which will hopefully be helpful, is a quick run through your coursework booklets looking at the data on what students answered well and what we had issues with, in the hope that this will focus some of your revision ahead of Friday. So we had our coursework booklet here. First question, actually, as you can see here, most people did this really, really well. So I'm not outing anyone. You've got your spirit animals as your names on there. Really, really high preponderance of people getting, the preponderance of people getting 3s or 2s. You all know indictable offences are serious offences. Summary offences are less serious. You know the places, or you should know the places where they are sent to trial or where they have hearings. Of course, where this is connected with a stimulus, you need to look for clues in the stimulus to incorporate in your answer. But if you've got a straight distinguished question here, you just need to make sure you're using connecting terms and that you're giving enough detail to get 3 marks. So boosting down here to the stimulus, and this is based on a real case that unfolded in the last couple of years, you are asked who has the burden of proof in this case and what was the standard of proof. Actually, VCAR rules are that essentially if you just identify that the person with the burden of proof, or the party with the burden of proof, is the prosecution, and that the standard of proof in this case, because it's a criminal case, is beyond reasonable doubt, you would get the 2 marks. But we need to really make sure that we've got that in 2 discrete sentences and that you've got enough detail in there so it's 2 solid marks. Okay, increasing in difficulty here, we have a need to define the term the presumption of innocence and identify, importantly, 2 ways that it could be upheld in June's case. Now, you need to be really alert to limiting terms. There were people who only did 1, and so you can't get all of the marks. But if we have a look at 2B on here, pretty broad spread of marks, but again, a lot of people really actually also only getting 1s and 2s. So start by defining the presumption of innocence. It's really hard to use solid synonyms for this. Yes, it is a key concept, it's a key principle in the justice system, whereby a person who is accused of an offence is presumed innocent until they are proven guilty to the relevant standard. That's what you need to say for a full mark there. Then you need to put a full stop there, go on to say, one way that it could be upheld in June's case is, and you could say any of the things that we've looked at, it could be around issues of bail, although you might have a question mark over whether that would be granted in a case where there are issues around public safety or a likelihood that an accused person might abscond. And of course, you can look at things like the fact that the burden of proof does rest with the prosecution, or that the standard of proof is incredibly high, or the right to silence, any of those kinds of things. But you just need to pick 2 and make sure that you identify those. All right, on to the questions from this week. We have question 1. So you're asked to explain one other right, other than the presumption of innocence, that the accused person has, and explain how this upholds one of the principles of justice. Now, if we look here, we start to drop off a little bit as the level of sophistication increases. You needed to explain another right, that the right of the accused, and you were actually given the dot points up here, so you could have chosen any of these. I think most people kind of went with right to trial without unreasonable delay, or the right to a fair hearing. There is, I think the right to a fair hearing is good because, of course, there are 2 sub-aspects to that, so there's plenty to talk about. But you needed to actually explain the content of that right. A lot of people didn't explain the source. That's a good way to up the content, So tell us where this right comes from, how is it protected, and then link it to one of the principles of justice. So if you're looking at the right to a fair hearing, Obviously, competent, impartial court and transparency, they both link really easily to, or really clearly to, the concept of fairness in the justice system, fair processes and procedures. But where people hit the 3-mark ceiling was that they weren't really actually able to say, well, how does this right to have a fair trial heard by a competent court that's transparent, well, how does it actually increase fairness? You've got the word fair in both, but you need to really juice it and tell the marker, okay, well, just because they've got this, well, what does it mean then? How does it actually uphold that idea that justice should be clear and transparent, and that, an accused person should be confident that they are going to have their court heard by someone who is competent, able to do that, and unbiased. Okay, identify the two parties in the case. Straight up, people, it's a criminal, so it's the prosecution and the accused. Most people got that right. Identify and explain 2 rights of victims. This was a pretty generous 4-marker, because if you just identify the right, cool, you got a mark, and then gave a further point of detail, what does it entail? So lots of people talked about the right to be informed about the proceedings, but then didn't quite juice that enough to say, well, like what information are they entitled to receive? And then lots of people spoke about the right to be informed about the release date of an offender. And then, although if you looked ahead to question 4, that's fine. A few people also spoke about the right to give evidence as a vulnerable witness. I think probably explain to the reader what a vulnerable witness is and how their right to give evidence is protected. Question 4 was actually really tough to get the 2 marks, because lots of people were able to say, yes, victims can apply to be on the victims register if they are subject to violent offending, but then they couldn't quite get to the 2nd mark. I think really the clue is in the fact that you need to use an example. So you had to say something like any of the ones that we looked at, like violent assaults, kidnapping, the things that are on those lists in the sides. Make sure you look at those. And that's probably a good start for you all. There'll be more video. I'm going to do a speed run through the content and have a look at the practice sack and put these up later.